The Zero Project anthem is dedicated to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and all its goals. Its premiere, the Zero Project Conference Vienna in February 2018. Access Israel, together with 1,100 students of the Bialik Rogozin School in Tel Aviv, learned the anthem in sign language and sent a video. The students on the sports court start signing, some of them wave flags. Inside a circular building, a singer and a choir.
If you see me, take me just the way I am. We could change the world because we understand. If we both are part of the same society, I could be me.
An audience films the performance.
Zero barriers, zero walls, zero borders, zero bombs, zero limits. By reaching our aim, zero project, the dignity of man.
A blonde singer.
You give me chances and take me by the hand. If you let me grow and if you let me be, if we all gave up our partiality, then I could be free.
Zero barriers, zero walls, zero borders, zero bombs, zero limits. Reaching our end, zero project, the dignity of man.
The choir mingles with the audience. Everybody smiles and starts clapping. The students wave their hands to express clapping in sign language. On a white screen, a green plant with 3 leaves grows. Zero Project for a world without barriers.
Okay. Woo! Are we awake? Okay. Jeepers, that took a bit of air out of me. Right. Welcome. Zero Conference 2020. This is our 9th Zero Conference. Can you believe it? 9! This is our 7th one here in the UN, our home. And this year it's about inclusive education. We have 700 participants, maybe a little bit more, from 80 countries, and you are still our family. We also have everybody out in the world of online watching, so a big wave to everybody. They're still part of our family too. And for those of you who don't know me, which at this point I can't believe you don't, I'm still wearing really bad fashion. My name is Caroline Casey. I'm an Irish disability activist. I've been in the space for 20 years. My passion has been inclusive business. I have a lot of reasons to smile this year. You might hear about that a little bit later. I have a lived experience of disability. I am registered legally blind and understand what it's like to go through the world just a little differently. So just for a second, for those of you who are new here at the Zero Conference, you're so welcome to our family. This is a fabulous family. And for those of you who are coming back, welcome home. We've created something very, very special here with the Zero Conference and the Zero Project. And it's different to other conferences. We all put our egos aside when we come here. We are all allies for each other. In the Zero Project and the Zero Conference, we operate as allies for inclusion together. There is enough for all of us. If I shine my light on you, I don't take away from myself. We're here to rise the tide for all of us and to leave competition and ego outside the door. And that's what's made this special essence and energy where we can all turn up here at this conference and truly be ourselves. I often say the one thing that I love to do with my nephew, he's 4 years old. I unfortunately am not a mum. But he's 4 and I often get down on my honkers and I hold his shoulders. And I say to him, Matthew, you are perfect the way you are. And that's what we want for all of our children. For them to believe they are enough and they are perfect the way they are. But our world is not fully designed for that just yet. And that's why our work on inclusive education is so important. To give each of our children the chance to be who they need to be to belong. Not to fit in, but to belong. To be seen and heard as who they are themselves. So we as adults need to lead the way. So what I ask you to do in this conference is make sure, if there's somebody in the corner who would like to be speaking to somebody, make sure they're okay. Find the moments of magic and conversation outside our plenary sessions and our parallel sessions. Have the conversation, make the friendships. There are friendships that have been here nearly over a decade long, and that's where the magic happens. We have the greatest chance in 2020. It started, you could feel it 2 years ago, where it is a zeitgeist moment for the community of people with disabilities around the world, the citizenship of 1.3 billion people. And if we join all our dots together, we are completely and utterly contagious. You cannot ignore us. Our time is finally coming. So with this conference, reach out, make the connections, join the dots. I often think it's like a big string of fairy lights around the world. That's what Zero Conference does. So for the next 3 days, have fun, make connections, share, work hard, and do some dancing. It's always very important. Now, I need to say to you,
I hate this room, sorry UN, but you seem so far away. They have a line here, okay? And I am not allowed to cross it. But I am an activist, so I will. You don't get to tell us where we go or what we do. My job here today, however, is to try and keep this on time, to try and keep the energy in the room, and to make sure that you all eat and have enough access to water and all of your access needs are available to you. Now, I'm an over-talker, so I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to introduce onto the stage. And what's wonderful about the Zero Conference, we have returning friends. They love us. So onto the stage for our opening remarks. Will you please give a round of applause for our founder, the great Martin Essl. Beside Martin, we have returning Ambassador Sellner, who is the permanent head of mission here in the UN in Vienna. Please, Ambassador Gabriella Sellner. Thank you for coming back. Now, this conference this year has an energy of youth. It's about education. Who are we educating? The youth. So you will see there's a lot of our parallel sessions or initiative events which have youth involved with them. And we are delighted to have a youth activist from Norway, Marianne. Knudsen, is that right? Yes, so please a round of applause for Marianne Knudsen. And also in the room, returning this year, can we please put a round of applause for the President of the Austrian Parliament, who will be speaking later. Where are you? But I am saying, here he is. We'll be bringing him up later. Please, Hugh, thank you so much for giving us your time. Right, Mr. Essl, it is your opening remarks. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for your warm welcome. And I have to tell you in front of, we will go into deep within the next 3 days. Your project of the Valuable 500 is amazing. You have to be aware that Caroline is not just the best moderator of conferences you can imagine, but also she is convincing very important people in the world to help us supporting persons with disability and tear down barriers for all persons with disabilities. And what was possible for her is to convince, I think, more than half of your target, more than 250 CEOs from all over the world, but not from tiny companies, but from the hugest ones, to convince them to be part of our team and of our family who will go forward to abolish barriers so that everybody can live in an inclusive world. Thank you so much, Caroline, for your warm welcome. She's our rock star. Your Royal Highness, Mr. President of the Austrian Parliament, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear partners, friends, members of the worldwide Zero Project family. I too should like to bid you welcome. It is truly marvelous to see you all here again. This is our 7th conference at the United Nations here in Vienna. We could not be here without the very kind cooperation of the UN itself, together with that of the Austrian Foreign Ministry and the permanent mission of Austria to the UN here in Vienna. We had a marvelous kind of pre-opening yesterday in the plenary room of the Austrian Parliament, and you will see it here on the photo. I did in person yesterday. We were invited by the President of the Austrian Parliament. Thank you, Wolfgang, so much for supporting us and the very important mission you are doing to make Austria as a role model of inclusiveness during the next years. And I can assure you that we will help you and support you wherever we can, so that Austria will be a role model country in the future in this circumstance. Thank you so much for that. And what we did here, not just talk. We presented 5 innovations, 5 digital innovations, and some of them were prepared in advance for that event here and made fit so that they are able to be implemented in Austria. And we will see here some politicians from Austria, the education community and the disability community, all discussing what we can do together to change the world, to tear down barriers so that everybody can use, have an inclusive society. Ladies and gentlemen, this year we are closing our second 4 years research circle. We revisited inclusive education, a subject so very important to all of us. And as most of you know, the conference is the annual highlight of the Zero Project, where you help bring a full year's work to life. We are all more than aware how education is changing. These changes just seems to get quicker and quicker. Yes, they can offer unique opportunities, but also challenges. Digitalization, for example. Okay, new openings, new prospects, new skills, but also new training needs. In this instance, what we have to avoid above all is any digital divide. A separation between the haves and the have-nots, or the skilled and the unskilled. The overarching opportunity must be for a more just access to education for all. So to the conference. We have 3 great days ahead of us. I'm looking forward to so many of the things that are planned. There are just some of them all closed to my heart. There are amazing 75 innovative practices and 11 innovative policies that really will inspire us and could change the world of inclusive education throughout the world if we all are able and willing to spread at least one single innovation out in our region. Besides, there is the Zero Project Impact Transfer, where we'll present 10 amazing projects being supported by both mentors and by Ashoka and the Foundation Descubreme since last year to be ready for internationalization. Then there is Inclusive IT Academy with great results. There is accessible and inclusive communication around art. There is the Africa Forum, and last but not least, and thanks to the President of the Austrian Parliament, as I mentioned before, we had a presentation yesterday introducing digital solutions, and I'm so happy that the President really wants to change the situation in Austria. Thank you for that. Let me finish with both an announcement and an appeal. First, the announcement. This is our newly established cooperation with Fondation Descouvreme. We are very proud to have found a partner who can help us to expand in the Spanish-speaking hemisphere with the first regional Zero Project conference this year in Santiago de Chile in June. When founders and foundations are like-minded and think along similar lines, the future opens out. We believe we can do great things together. And now the appeal. As a Zero Project enters the third research circle, we have very concrete plans for the coming 4 years and ahead. But one thing is certain. This can only be done with you, the Zero Project Network and community. As I always explain, it is you who are really the Zero Project. The Zero Project is neither the Essl Foundation nor its core team. We are just the enablers who want and try to support your work. We need your support to form even stronger and wider connections. We need to know even more about the impact of your work. And we will invest in that. Amongst other initiatives, we have launched a digitalization project. For this to succeed, we need your feedback and also your willingness to work with us. First, you to nominate new projects and programs. You to peer review and to vote. You to come to our conference, and please invite us to yours to share the experience that we jointly develop. You are the change makers, and you are the power for a world without barriers. Thank you so much for being here, and have wonderful 3 inspiring days. Recharge your batteries, exchange your experiences, and are open for new innovations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martin. Before we go on and invite Ambassador Sellner to do some opening remarks, we come this year without the passing of somebody that we deeply have loved in our family. But I just want to acknowledge we still think of you, Netta and Martin, and Ambassador Christine Stick-Uxel. Just remember, we're continuing to do your work. So I just think it's always important to remember those who have been in our family are not here right now. But one of the things about Ambassador Stick-Uxel is that she kept coming back year after year after year. And we couldn't imagine having another wonderful ambassador to fill those shoes, but we really do. And we cannot thank you enough, Ambassador Sellner, for coming back and being with us here and providing us this home here in the UN, which has become this magnet every year in February to bring this community together. And I know I give out about the room, which is big, but it is our home, and we are really, really appreciative to what you have done. So please, we're very looking forward to your opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Caroline, for your kind words, also concerning my predecessor. We worked together with UNOF on preparing this building, having it ready for this important conference every year, so we share your thanks in this regard. Mr. President of the National Council, Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Essl, it is a great pleasure for me to participate again in this year's Zero Project Conference. And I thank the Essl Foundation profoundly for the opportunity to say a few words to all of you at the opening of this important event. Already last year, more than 700 participants from more than 83 countries came to join this conference. And this year, we reached the same level. The conference promises, due to its very interesting program on innovative practices and policies on education, an excellent exchange of information during the sessions, as well as during the impressive side program. Representing the host country, let me say a few words about our national position. Austria is a member of the United Nations Human Rights Council, and this is currently chaired by an Austrian. Austria strongly promotes the rights of persons with disabilities. We have ratified the relevant UN Convention 2008, and the recently sworn-in government very clearly commits to its implementation. The government states in its program the clear will to follow an inclusive approach. Specific attention will be paid to the education of children with special requirements. The government is committed to increase the offer of inclusive education in schools, but also in the tertiary sector. Other commitments concern the inclusion in the labor market or the inclusion through sports. Recently, on the 24th of January, the International Day of Education was celebrated here. We had a conference in the VSC organized by UNODC on the role of higher education in strengthening the rule of law worldwide and in achieving SDG 16. The Austrian delegation pointed out the importance of inclusive education and informed the participants about this private initiative, the Zero Project Conference. To everybody who is working in this field, it is clear that the contribution of the civil society to bring about improvements is highly important. I commend you all on your dedication, your daily work, but also your readiness to come here and share experiences, which will lead to new networks and new ideas and maybe even new projects. In this context, I want to thank Mr. Essl very much for his initiative and actions about which he just informed us, and it's incredible what is going on through Zero Project, for providing also this excellent platform. I thank you for your attention, and I wish all of us an interesting, informative, and very successful Zero Project Conference 2020. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. As we said, this conference has a youth element to it. We're talking about education. We need to be hearing the voices of the people that we are educating. And as you will see, we will have that voice all throughout the next 3 days. But we are very delighted to bring a Norwegian youth activist, Marianne, Knudsen, here to be part of our opening remarks, to give your experience, and we really look forward to hearing from you over the next 3 days. So a round of applause, please, for Marianne.
Is the sound all right? Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Marianne, and I am 20 years old from Norway. I'm really appreciating being here with you. Education is one of the most important keys we have to achieve equality. And everyone in this room can take a part in this global fight for freedom. Today, disabled all over the world meet a lot of discrimination when it comes to their right to education. UN Human Rights says that all children have the same right to attend to school. But today we know that this right is violated far too often when it comes to people with disabilities. Today, in this world, we have over 50 million children who don't go to school, and disability is one of the major causes. We can ask ourselves how to change it. And mostly important, we need to ask ourselves why. Through all discrimination starting with a group of people letting others define who they are and starting to believe in how others see them. When I was little, I thought that it was something wrong with me for not being able to attend the bus or the school in my neighborhood. But I understood that there is nothing wrong with me for not being able to attend the bus or the school. It's the bus and the school who are not accessible for everyone. Today, I believe that disability, being a phenomenon, is created by society, barriers, discrimination, and not as a characteristic of the individual. Seriously, discrimination gets hidden today. It gets hidden by terms of special needs, hidden behind doing what's best for people like them, and charity. When it comes to education, it's quite easy, actually, because every student has the same need of learning, the same opportunity to contribute. We are not something wrong that needs to be fixed. Who has the power? Who has the power to decide which people who are wrong and which people who are right? Who has the power to decide which group of humans that deserves freedom and equal rights and who don't? It's all about perspective. It's not about having special needs. It's about having equal human rights. Our fight for equality is extremely important, maybe more important than most things, because it's about changing a whole perspective. Several million children do not have the same right to school. That's crazy, because this should not only be a fight for people with disabilities, it should be a fight for everyone. Being inclusive, it's not about taking one for the team or a new welfare project for people with special needs. It's about that we are losing all of these resources that the world needs without even realizing it. It's about investment. It's about investment in people. It's about investment in human rights. We do have an important fight, because we are not there before when it's no matter of course that all children go to the same school. When we can use our qualifications in a job in the future and we're not seen as an inspiration but as an equal. When we are not divided into special schools and special transport. It's about freedom. And people that are hungry for change are willing to do what other people want. If we do what's easy, we are not doing it right. Because discrimination, it's not easy. It's hard to make a radical change. It's hard to take leadership, to take room and to do action. But it is necessary. If you have things you want to do, if you have ideas that you sit on, just don't hope for change. Make the change. The road to success is commitment. We need to change the world, and I believe that our time is now.
I was waiting for more. Thank you. I mean, it is the greatest chance that we have is the power of the young voice. We're seeing that everywhere. And I could not agree with you more. This is about our freedom to be who we are and to release the potential of everyone into the world for everyone. And it still is a crazy statistic that UNICEF say that 90% of children who have a disability do not see the inside of a classroom. Our world is in a crazy place, and we need everybody's contribution and potential released into this world. We know that disability is costing, the cost of exclusion to our countries and to our world morally, economically, socially. And so we are delighted to have a leader here today to give us our keynote. It's also wonderful to have somebody come back and not be a one-hit wonder. So we are absolutely delighted to have the President of the Austrian Parliament, Wolfgang to come back. But Wolfgang was also with us yesterday. And you have continued to come back and be committed. And we really do appreciate it, because it's not just here for a speech or a conference, but to lead with commitment. So please, a huge round of applause. We are delighted to have you back.
Your Royal Highness, dear Martin Essl, ladies and gentlemen, after this speech from the member of Norwegian, it's very hard to speak as a politician, but I will try. You're here, and we should hear to the words of the next generation, and it's our duty. It's a great honor and a particular pleasure for me to address you again this year at the Zero Project Conference. As in previous years, the Zero Project Conference, which has been organized wonderfully by the Essl Foundation, represents an important initiative for people with disabilities and has become a special occasion in our yearly calendar. It brings people from all over the world together, and in so doing serves as an ideal platform for sharing experience and shaping opinion, with an eye towards strengthening public awareness of the interests of people with disabilities. This is why I see it as my personal duty to be here every year. One of the most fundamental tasks of political leadership is to enable people with disabilities to participate in all areas of life. Consequently, opening up Parliament and democratic decision-making processes to everybody is a fundamental principle for any kind of political action. However, opening up the Parliament means much more than just removing the physical barriers to the building. We restore our Parliament, and we will do the best in the best way. But it is more. Democracy, mediation process must also become more accessible. That means that people with disabilities should be encouraged to actively participate in the political discourse. Only then can we say we have achieved full participation. Therefore, it stands to reason that nothing about us without us. It's the guiding principle of the self-representation of people with disabilities. Because they should speak for themselves and decide for themselves when it comes to their interests. In my capacity as President of the Austrian Parliament, the National Council, it always has been a personal priority of mine to take the relevant steps in this direction. As of this year, for example, the parliamentary administration has begun offering assistance to its staff by providing appropriate training on how to interact with people with disabilities. The aim is to avoid unintentional discrimination and to raise awareness of their needs. The redesign of the Parliament's website also is an important contribution to its goal. Moreover, interesting and groundbreaking projects in technology and digitalization were presented at an event with the motto Education, Inclusion and Digitalization, held yesterday and was mentioned from Martin in the Parliament. On the one hand, these projects help break down barriers, while at the same time they also serve as an incentive for new innovations. This brings me back to the responsibility of policymakers to ensure the inclusion of people with disabilities in society. Protecting and promoting the rights of people with disabilities is a top priority in Austria. Austria, and the ambassador mentioned it, ratified it, the UN Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities in 2008, thereby expressing a strong commitment to protect these rights by setting uniform standards for legislation and enforcement. Austria has drawn up a national action plan to implement the UN Convention. Its aim, among other things, is to make support services for people with disabilities easier and more accessible and keep bureaucracy to a minimum. Furthermore, in its coalition agreement, the current Austrian government has placed special emphasis on ensuring participation and education, as this a basic condition for leading a self-determined life. The aim here is to provide open access to all forms of education, in other words, to ensure inclusion up to higher education. The government intends to achieve this through measures such as continuing to equip educational institutions to ensure accessibility, continuing to provide the necessary tools and infrastructure, further developing the quality of educational services, providing properly trained educators and assistants throughout the education system, increasing special education hours, revising curricula, providing additional vocational training and opportunities, ensuring the best possible inclusion of children with special needs or disabilities in mainstream education, and restating the consulting board. This year's conference will focus on innovative practices and policies on education. However, it will be very difficult for people with disabilities to lead a self-determined life if we fail to ensure their participation throughout the education system. This is all the more important as this is the only way to guarantee a basis for them to participate in the labor market and policy making. It must therefore be an interest of all of us to create the appropriate framework for this to happen. Because, let me quote the former Minister of Labor of Germany, Norbert Blum, "Nothing is more important for persons with disabilities than to contribute to their own livelihood through gainful employment." The agendas and projects presented at the Zero Project Conference are important and indispensable contribution to achieving this objective. However, it's our common duty to further actively promote these developments in the future. Thank you for your commitment and for your attention and for your work all over the year, and especially in these 3 days. I wish you the best information and the best conference ever in 2020 in Vienna.
Thank you, President Subotka.
Thank you very much.
This is a man who has spoken and done more in the last 2 years, and we really appreciate your commitment because it's real. So thank you very, very much. It is, it's real. Thank you for your leadership. Now, I think you referred to an expression, nothing with us, without us. I just wanted to say, Yasmin Laroche, I love her expression. She's been often saying in the last year, simply nothing without us, full stop. I love that, don't you? And I think that's a great place for us to just segue into the Michael Show. So Michael has been quite jealous of me walking around informally making jokes, and so he wants to take over the main stage and talk to us in sort of a comedic type format, right, Michael? Where we're going to be speaking about all the features for the Zero Conference for the next 3 days. Now, one of the things that the Zero Conference is always trying to work on is to make sure that all of our access needs are met. It is a journey, it is an intention, and we're trying. So, Michael, over to you. I'm Bonnie and Clyde, I'm going to Clyde, so off you go. Yeah. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, so we did a lot on preparations for this conference, and I'm trying my best in the next 15 minutes to give you a full impression what we have prepared in terms of accessibility, but also all the other features that we have prepared for you. And it's really hard to make this in 15 minutes, but we also will manage to do that. So please, I tried to form a line of all the contributors. It's members of my team, but also other partners. So please come forward. Okay, so let's dive right into it. So Anna, you're a member of my team. What have you prepared for us?
Hello everyone. I want to talk about the conference app that is available for all participants here. So please download the app on the Apple Store or Google Play Store. It's really very simple to use. And I would invite you to check out the schedule in the agenda, then look for your sessions that you're interested in and bookmark them, which allows you to have a personalized conference agenda.
How about presentations? We have got them all online.
All presentations are online on our conference websites, and for 4 participatory sessions, Klaus Höckner transformed all presentations in captioned videos that are available on our YouTube channel. And for one session, we have a summary in easy language that is available in the audio channel, so please ask the moderator for more details.
Thank you, Anna. I need you later again, so please stay here. Paula, you also... Hi, Paula. You're also a member of my team. What have you prepared for us?
I am here to try and talk about all the accessibility measures we have at the conference, but I know what you're going to say. We don't have time.
We don't have time.
So I have prepared a video.
Okay, great.
Accessibility at the Zero Project Conference. The following accessibility features are available at the Zero Project Conference. Tactile flooring. Tactile flooring will aid navigation to conference rooms, exhibition areas, and other key spaces. Speech codes. Speech codes give information about the agenda and accessible restrooms in an audio format. To use these speech codes, please download the Speech Code app. Individual support. Volunteers are available to act as a buddy to individual participants throughout the conference. Live captioning. All sessions in all 3 conference rooms are captioned in English. International sign. International sign interpreters will cover all sessions in the main conference room, M1, and sessions in M2 and M3 on request. Portable induction loops. Portable induction loops are available from the registration desk on request. Live audio description of videos. live audio description is available for all videos submitted to the Zero project team prior to the conference. This can be accessed through individual headsets available in all 3 conference rooms. Preparation material for participatory sessions. For the participatory sessions, videos of the presentations, including captions and audio, will be available online before the conference.
Okay, Paula, was that all that we got on accessibility? Is that all?
No, that isn't all. In some of the sessions, we also have graphic facilitation.
Okay, so let's move on to graphic facilitation. Welcome, Petra. So what have you prepared for us?
Well, hello, I'm Petra. I will be your graphic facilitator, and you will find me here in M1 for 4 sessions. I will be doing some drawings, the storyboard of each session, and after that I will give a short summary in hopefully easier words, very helpful also for all of us who are not native speakers in English, hopefully. And you will find me here on this afternoon at 3:40, then tomorrow at 10:25, again tomorrow at 1:35, and then last but not least on Friday 10:40 for all the sessions, the participatory sessions right here in M1.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Petra. Paula, I need you once again. Yeah. We got also accessibility guidelines for the conference. What exactly is that?
Yes, so we now have a few years' experience putting on conferences. We know we still have more to do, but we wanted to share the experience of what we've learned so far in delivering conference accessibility. Okay. So we've produced guidelines in partnership with one of our key partners, Essl Foundation. Okay,
so I have to turn my back on you. Claudia, welcome. So you're a trusted partner in many things, including the production of the conference accessibility guide. So it's your turn to explain why you're supporting us.
Hello. Marianne, I am here for freedom as well, like you. Thank you for your speech. Well, my name is Cláudia, I'm from Brazil, and I am the head of a NGO called School of People. 8 years ago, I founded this NGO, and School of People means we are unconditional followers of people. We do not admit any kind of discrimination. We are very proud to be part of the team who created these conference accessibility guidelines. A publication that reminds us that the offer of accessibility is not only a tool to ensure all the rights, but it is a strong right in itself. Our partnership with the Zero Project began 6 years ago when we are first recognized as a best innovative practice. Since then, we were recognized 2 further times. It's very important for us. In 2018, the Zero Project invited us to analyze all the conferences accessibility. So we wrote a very detailed report that led to the adoption of new accessibility measures in the last conference, and gave birth to these guidelines. And now that the guidelines are ready, are a reality, we have our challenge. Our challenge starts now, because the guidelines have to be put in practice. And so I believe we shall take care of each other if you are in this together. So congratulations, Zero Project, the Zero Project. I hope all of you have a nice conference, and let's celebrate. Long life to the guidelines.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. So the guidelines are also available for download, and we would really appreciate if you comment on that, give us your suggestions based also on this year's experience at the conference. Robert, you're one of our awardees this year, and we invited you to come here and also so that we can use your service, which is really special. What is it exactly?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. So we're doing something very exciting here. If you can just go ahead and click through this slide. There we go. So what we're doing is we're setting up live captioning. In addition to what you're seeing on the screen up here in English, we're going to provide you captioning in basically any language that you want. And so you're going to be able to view that on your own tablet or laptop or phone, whatever you have, wherever you're sitting. And what to do this, I'll step you through it real quick. You're just going to go to the website that's shown there, www.streamer.center. You'll click on the login button, and then you're going to sign in using an account, guest-language, whatever language you want, and just type the password. We made that very simple for you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When you do that, you'll see the rooms listed. We're currently in room M1 and M2 and M3, so just click on the room that you would like to see the captioning, and that's going to work for you. Next slide, please. And one more, there we go. So here's a list of 60 of the languages. There are many more. I just couldn't fit them all on the slide. And so again, you would log in using guest-German or guest-Polish, whatever language you want. And again, there are more, so let us know if you have one. You can also set up your own personal captioning room. You can see the link there. We're not advertising that to anyone else. This is just for conference attendees. And so if you do that, you'll be able to create your own streamer captioning room. If you have any questions, we're out in the hall and we can certainly help get that situated for you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robert. So I have to turn back to Anna again. You tell us a little bit about what we've prepared in terms of performances.
Yes, tomorrow morning we're very happy to welcome Tribüne, which is a local inclusive dance company, and they will show us some of their dances tomorrow at 9 a.m. in M1. And on Friday you're all invited to join an inclusive sunrise yoga. Yeah.
Thank you. Michal.
Yes.
You did a lot for us as every year, so what are you going to tell us? What are you featuring this year at the Zero Project Conference for us?
First of all, you're not saying who I am. I'm Michal Rimon, Access Israel, and a member of your team. Totally.
Yeah, you do this always yourself. So.
Perfect. So I'm Michal Rimon, the CEO of Access Israel, and I really feel like part of the Zero Project team, a partner. Well, for the newcomers, welcome to a conference that has really changed the way we are doing things internationally, and we feel privileged and very happy for the amazing ripple effect that this conference has, so make the most out of it. For the returning ones, well, we're back. The crazy Israelis, as we were referred to in past years. We are here to make sure that this amazing crowd of experts and users and innovators will not just talk the talk, but will walk the walk. Will really experience. Every year we are challenged by the Zero Project gang to really reinvent according to the subject of the conference and really try to let you guys, all of us together, experience and feel what we're talking about. So, this year, we're talking about inclusive education. And for that, we have chosen innovations from all over the world that are going to be with us in the press room downstairs. It's first floor just underneath the escalator. And the idea is we're going to have 5 sessions. In each one, we're going to start, of course, with experience. After you enter the classroom or enter the recess or enter the ceremony that we're going to have there, you're going to be given a disability, and then you're going to really feel how it feels to conduct something like this while you have some kind of disability on you. Now, while you're there, you'll be able to get to know innovations that are going to speak throughout the conference in the various panels, but this time you're going to be able to really try it out, really see how it is done, experience it. But the most important thing, I think, is that in all 5 sessions, at least half of the time is going to be dedicated for us to talk. Somehow of a round table, and that's why I really want each and every one of you to make an effort and come to at least one session. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to together create a discussion on how we can really take the innovations that all of you are coming and presenting here and expand it, pay it forward each in our own country. So that's it.
Yeah. Thank you. And Michael, the beginning times of these classrooms we will announce on the app, so and one more reason to download the app. Next, it's exhibition time, Martin. So Martin's also a member of our team, and he has prepared in the last weeks, months, the exhibition and the exhibition show. So what are you going to expect?
Well, I know that you all have busy schedules, but in the breaks there's a really cool exhibition waiting out there with more than 38 booths that are showcasing hands-on what you are maybe hearing in the sessions. So I can really motivate you to go there, but to get an overview of all the showcases, come this afternoon to the exhibition question and answer shows in here. I say shows because it's going to be a pitching show. All the exhibitors will pitch for your attention. Time is limited, your time is limited, so they have to pitch that you come to their booth. And tonight, there's the exhibition night, so there will be lots of time and opportunities to meet all the exhibitions out there.
Thank you, Martin. Sima? Sima, you're in charge of the youth participation and advocacy program of this year's conference, so what is it?
So this year, for the first time, we have young people actively joining us at the Zero Project Conference, and we call them the Zero Project Youth Advocates, and we have 12 of them, and they will be supporting us with different activities such as the social media and the award ceremony, but more importantly, they will be sharing their experiences when it comes to inclusive education at the Youth Couch session and also at the Youth Forum. So please make time and join them there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sima. You mentioned social media already. You're doing a lot this year on social media. So what are you saying and what are you telling us on social media, about social media?
Thank you. So what's new on social media for social media this year is that we will be having a wall, and which the walls will be displayed during all the breaks in all the rooms, and you can see the walls here. And so please join us online for the conversation. Use our Zero Project, like the hashtag ZeroCon20 and #ZeroProject. And yes, that's it. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And the wall is a system where you get your own, you see your own messages coming as they are live, almost live, so you can see what all the other people in the room are posting about the Zero Project Conference. Thanks, Sima. Wilfried, last but not least, you have also some important things to tell us.
Thank you. Good morning. There's many of you who come here for the umpteenth time, but there's many of you who come here for the first time. And it's not so easy to get into contact and to get to know other people. So we have a dedicated meeting area. The meeting area is on the ground floor. At the far end, it's numbered tables, and we suggest that you use the app and take appointments and meet there whomever you want to meet and get to know, present what you're doing, and listen to the ones you want to get to know. The other things I want to mention, there is food. We will have sandwich lunch from 11:30 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 11:30 to 2 o'clock. Please, you have your vouchers. Pick it up. There is vegetarian and vegan options available, and we will have hot food and hopefully cold drinks tonight and also tomorrow night.
Thank you, Wilfried. So that was about it all. We made it in 15 minutes. Caroline, back to you. Yeah.
Can I just say a round of applause for everybody? This is our family. Good job on time. Can I just say I've had to change microphones. I'm really sorry for those of you who heard that I got married in July. Sorry that the speaker was still on my mic. So I'm back to using my handheld, which is exactly what I want, which is exactly what we need when we have our own particular access needs. Now, I also want to just give you a complete shout out to our interpretation team up here up the front. Can we give them a round of applause? They worked very hard. I hope I'm actually using this mic, it doesn't hear it. And to all our sound guys down the back and here up at the front, give them a round of applause. If you need anything, they're here for you. Seriously? Here. Did anybody hear what I've just said? Do I have a really shouty voice? Okay, just to round up very quickly, I'm sorry for those of you who heard that I got married in July as I was walking out the room with my mic on. So I'm replacing my mic. But also just to say to you, please can we recognize, though I'm the worst criminal for this, can we speak slowly for our interpreters here up the front? If you have any access needs to technologies, the guys down the back. And I just wanted to say they did a great job keeping on time. So that's a little summary. Now, we have our next keynote speech. And this lady who I'm introducing, she's a legend. Charlotte McLean-Lepo is a legend from World Bank. And actually, you've come several times to... I have indeed. Yeah, she's very much part of the Zero Project family. So will you please put a round of applause for the wonderful Charlotte McLean-Lepo.
Thank you very much, Caroline. And I definitely feel like I'm a member of this family. I'd like to begin by thanking President Sobotka, His Royal Highness, Mr. Martin Essl, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues. I also particularly want to say thank you to Marianne. What a great honor it is to be able to be here today as you launch into the Zero Project Conference. A conference that not only has a mission of working towards a world without barriers, but it puts the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities at its core. It is great to see education the focus again. It was first discussed in depth here at the Zero Project Conference in 2016, to which I had the privilege of attending. But we know, and we know this for sure, that the conversation did not begin then, and the efforts to make education systems inclusive of children with disabilities is not a new conversation. We have been talking about this for at least 100 years, and we have each taken different paths and modalities which are often reflective of the development of our own countries. Where we are as countries and where we are as a planet today is not where we were 100 years ago, but neither is it where it should be. And while I will concede that progress has been made and we are moving, that movement has been very slow. We know too well that there are existing constraints and gaps, but we also know that it is possible to leapfrog over them. It is possible for us to skip over decades of efforts that we know have not worked. You see, it is also important to recognize that the journey to inclusive education is a process that takes time, one that we have begun to refine, one that we can go about more appropriately when we invest in understanding the context in which we're working, when we are mindful of where we are in the process in that particular country, and when we're cognizant of the resources that are at hand. To leapfrog over what has not worked in promoting inclusive education for children with disabilities, we need to focus on what we know. We need to focus on the fundamentals of inclusive education. Let me just hasten and say that there is no prescribed way to go about inclusive education. But that said, there are some basic principles that we all should adhere to as we work towards more inclusive education systems. And I should also say that no one has gotten this 100% correct yet. But if we ensure that our programs are child-centered, that mainstreaming takes place where appropriate and possible, and that all, and I underscore the word, all supports and services are available to children so that they can achieve their educational goals, we can begin to recognize with more clarity what inclusive education looks like. But perhaps more importantly, we need to think about what inclusive education feels like. Because after all, true inclusion is not just the placement in school. It's an experience. It's a life experience. But I want to remind everyone of another point that is critical to this discussion on education for children with disabilities. It is important to remember that education is not only about learning outcomes. Learning outcomes are, of course, important. And yes, of course, we want to see our children reading, our children writing, solving problems, and passing the exams. But there are other attributes that being in school can provide for any student and for all children. We know that social interactions that being in school provides for children of all ages is critical to their development. When any child, and in particular a child with a disability, is excluded or hidden away, they not only are denied their basic access right to education, but they're also hindered from developing socially, emotionally, and behaviorally. For these children to grow up and become full contributing citizens and members of society, their societal development needs need to be present in those earliest years of formation. And we need to ensure that that environment embraces them as a whole. And I think the words from Marianne really spoke to that point. Fortunately, where we are today is that there have been many global movements that have pushed us to where we are. They have pressed us to be more intentional about making sure inclusive education is reaching all students. And these include, but are not limited to, Education for All, the Salamanca Agreement, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, in particular Article 24, and its accompanying General Comment 4. And all of these have contributed to the framing of the Sustainable Development Goals, which too make specific reference to inclusive education. So this global architecture today we see has spurred an increase in the number of inclusive education policies and legislation across the globe, and this is a good thing. Following the Global Disability Summit hosted by the International Disability Alliance and the UK's Department of International Development that took place about 2 years ago in London, the World Bank and many other organizations made commitments to increase their efforts towards disability inclusive development. We at the World Bank made 10 commitments. The first one of the 10 commitments was a commitment to ensure that all education-funded projects are disability inclusive by 2025. This is a big ask. However, knowing that education intersects with other sectors, we also made commitments to increase inclusion in the public transportation, in social protection, to increase the number of staff with disabilities in the World Bank, and to ensure that we promote our disability inclusion and accountability framework amongst our staff at the bank. So with all of this in place, the World Bank has positioned itself to contribute to this very important development issue. We have been monitoring the success of the various projects funded by the Disability Inclusive Education in Africa project, which is a trust fund supported by USAID. And this is an exciting collaboration of partners signaling a move to action. And so in an effort to move beyond the rhetoric to implementation, at the beginning of this year, we had a meeting of all our various grantees, and we're very, very pleasantly surprised by the efforts that they were making towards inclusive education in 7 different sub-Saharan African countries. These ranged from strengthening data systems to the creation of teacher training modules that promote more inclusive teaching and learning practices, to increasing the number of resource centers to improve identification and screening tools. And very excitingly, many of these are well on their way. There was tangible excitement in the room as we realized that what was happening was what was once a vision was now coming to life. And this enthusiasm has been absolutely contagious. Last year, we launched the Inclusive Education Initiative. And this is the initiative that is supported by the government of Norway, NORAD, and DFID. And this initiative invests in catalytic technical expertise and knowledge resources that support countries in making education progressively inclusive for all children with disabilities. The initiative accelerates action by working with both global and, very importantly, country levels to help stakeholders and governments mobilize financing and develop programs that ensure inclusive education. So far, we have begun to work in 3 countries, and these countries are Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Nepal. So with my remaining time, Caroline, let me share a bit of what we've been doing. In Ethiopia, we are enhancing the quality of services available at the Inclusive Education Resource Centers. We are strengthening the quality of IMIS data. We are revising the screening tools and the training associated with administering those and scaling up the assistive technology for vision and hearing screening pilot. There is also, very importantly, an inclusive zero-class pre-primary program that is in development. And that's important to ensure that children with disabilities are coming into school with basic development in place. In Rwanda, we're providing technical assistance to streamlining recruitment and teacher deployment, and also looking at strengthening disability inclusion in ongoing World Bank operations. We were asked by the government of Rwanda to help in disseminating their special needs and inclusive education policy. And in Rwanda, we're also working at coordinating partners and providing technical assistance, again, to prove data collection and look at management systems. And in Rwanda, we're also providing grants to disabled people's organizations to ensure that the voice of persons with disabilities is present in all the discussions. In Nepal, we're conducting a comprehensive mapping and a review of resource classrooms and assessment centers, and we're identifying school-level constraints at the early childhood development stage. We're also looking at supporting MS data and ensuring that disability disaggregated data is collected. And we're also similarly providing technical assistance to large World Bank projects that invest in education in Nepal. Finally, in Nepal, we're looking at supporting targeted capacity building within the education system. And so, while we at the World Bank work primarily with governments around the world, we know that it takes engaging with a whole range of stakeholders to make this work. We are very aware that we cannot do this alone, This is a mission we all need to be working on together. It is time for us to collaborate more on our efforts, to coordinate our voices and our visions so that we can make greater influence and see the impactful change we have been wanting to see come to fruition for so long. To do this, our thinking needs to be aligned so that we do not send mixed messages to countries in which we work. This requires that we synergize our approaches, speak with one voice, ensure our messaging is fit for purpose, and if we're truly in this to see inclusive education take root, we have to work together. We need to be careful not to underestimate the demand and the critical need there is for robust data and evidence. Nor can we afford to disregard the impact that strong monitoring and evaluation can make. If we are to push the needle forward on our collective journey, we need to know where the needle stands currently. There has been a lot of work on teacher training, but we need to step back and ask ourselves some difficult questions. We need to ask ourselves, is that training working? Are we getting better learning outcomes for all children? Are the skills and the knowledge that we're imparting on teachers being executed properly and meeting the kids where they are? And so I'm really excited to be here over the next couple of days because I know many of you present are already doing that, and I hope to learn from you. And finally, for inclusive education to be sustainable, we absolutely have to understand how it is financed. We have only begun to scratch the surface in understanding how countries are investing in disability inclusive education. We need to better understand how much is being budgeted for. Is it going towards infrastructure or is it going to teacher training? Do government officials see the impact of their investments? Are children with disabilities benefiting? And are we supporting children with disabilities at every level? Are we supporting their families? Are we supporting the communities, their schools? And we need to look at what financing is in place from identification to the completion of school and beyond. There are many links in this chain, and we must ensure they are strong to ensure that a child with a disability is able to continue successfully in their life journey. We know the age-old adage, it takes a village to raise a child, and we know it's truth. We know it takes donors, we know it takes technical experts, we know it takes teachers, it takes parents, it takes policymakers, it takes researchers, it takes scholars, it takes persons with disabilities, it takes foundations, and of course, children. We have many people that have so much wisdom to impart to this conversation on how to achieve disability inclusive education. And we want all these people, all of you, to be part of this conversation, to take this conversation further together. And so that is why today, we at the World Bank are launching the Disability Inclusive Education Community of Practice. This is a community that will contribute to raising children with disabilities, ensuring that they too are able to access quality education. We will work together to grapple with challenging problems, but we'll also work together to celebrate and share the successes that we see. And we will listen to every individual who has a stake in this, and that is everyone. And so today, we invite you all to become members of this community, where we aim to share knowledge through documents and video footage of good practices. We will facilitate and nurture conversation but we will also welcome you to ask questions and initiate conversation. We know that the journey to inclusive education is one that we're all on, and I believe that through collaboration and coordination and multiple understanding of these challenges and the multiplicity of opportunities that exist, we will get there. We need to get there in a meaningful way and continue the journey forward. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. You're going to be around for the few days?
I am here.
Charlotte will be with us for a few days. Thank you. It's great to have one of our family members with us. Now, listen, because the Zero Project is all about listening and hearing, some of you have said that Robert from Speech Gear was going too fast. Well, not too fast, but you'd like to hear it again. So, and you hadn't got some time to log on. So I am going to pass over to Robert now. We're having a little bit of furniture moving here because we have Michael's famous couch sessions coming out afterwards. But Robert, can you just talk us through Speech Gear again a little slower?
Yes.
So everybody can kind of catch up.
Yeah, thanks everybody. So as we rearrange in the background here, if we can go to the next slide. We'll step you through this. There we go. And just go ahead and jump down here. So we're going to take it a little bit slower this time. And so we have roughly right now about 100 people, a little more than that, that are logged in viewing the captioning that's being streamed to your device. So again, we have the captioning up front here that you can view. If you want to view it on your own device, what you'll do is open up any browser. Doesn't matter whatsoever. So on a phone, a laptop, a tablet, whatever you have, just go ahead and open up a browser and go to the website that's listed there, www.streamer.center. And center in this case is spelled C-E-N-T-E-R versus the more British spelling of R-E. So again, just go to that website. When you do, it's going to, in the upper right corner, you'll see the login button. Go ahead and click on that, and you're going to log in using account guest dash and then whatever language you want. So in this example on the slide here, I have guest dash English, but as you see down further, it could be guest dash German, guest dash French. The password, very simple, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, you are going to the website, clicking on the login button, which will be in the upper right corner, and then you'll log in. So there's no apps that you're downloading or installing here. You're just going to the website. Let's jump to the next slide. And one more click. There we go. So here are 60 of the languages that we support. And so if you wanted to see this captioning in Japanese, you would type guest-Japanese when you log in. Again, the password being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At the very bottom of this page, you can see a link there and streamer.solutions/0 project. And when you use that link, what that's going to do is create a personal account for you. Instead of using the guest account, you will have a personal account. And as a thanks for coming to the conference, that's an account that you're going to be able to use forever. And so when you go back home to your place of work or your school or just talking with family members, you're going to be able to caption and translate all those conversations. So are we set? All right. So any questions, please see us. We're out in booth 16 and we'd be happy to help. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rob. So you're in booth 16. Where is that exactly?
We're just, if you see the clock in the back there, if you go out, we're just slightly to the right in the lobby area. Okay. And we're happy to help you.
Thank you so much for doing that again. Okay, guys, this is our last little session before we go for our break. So for those of you who've been here before, we have a tradition for a couch conversation hosted by our TV star, Michael. So I'm going to hand over now to Michael for our very first couch session with his guests, and I will be coming back to close us out before the parallel session. So a round of applause for Michael's couch sessions.
Thank you, Caroline. So with me here to discuss the principles of inclusive education, and that is going to be the topic of the next 45 minutes, is Nafisa Babu, the Director of Inclusive Education, Light for the World, based in Cape Town, South Africa, who is the head of Light for the World when it comes to advocacy and a focus on financing. somehow got it right somehow. But you...
Yes. Welcome. Thank you for everyone. I'm really happy to be here. So I work for Light for the World and I provide technical support to all our programs in low-income countries, and I'm responsible for the global advocacy, and we have a particular interest in financing, closing the gap between policy and policy implementation.
Thank you, Nafisa. To my right is Artemis Sakellariadis, who is the director at the Center for Studies on Inclusive Education from the University of Bristol, UK. Artemis has 30 years experience in working in the field of inclusive education. Anything you want to add, right, Wiwi?
I'll just clarify, if I may, that I have an honorary research associate position at Bristol University, but CSIE is an NGO, it's a not-for-profit organization. So CSIE has been around since 1982. I joined it in 2007. So I've worked in special schools for many years, but for the past 20 plus years, I've focused all of my time and my energy in promoting inclusive education.
Thanks, Artemis. And to my right, third person on the panel is Albert Brandstetter, who is the General Secretary of Lebenshilfe Austria, Lebenshilfe being the Austrian branch or department or whatever on the inclusion movement. Albert, anything you want to add right away?
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. Lebenshilfe is one of the strongest organizations, DPOs, advocating for inclusive education, for inclusive labor markets, for inclusive houses. So for us, inclusive education is one of the key issues for a self-determined life with full participation in society.
Thank you. So the next some 35 or 40 minutes we will spend on leveling the playing field of inclusive education. We want to get three things done. First, find out what the principles are that everyone agrees on when it comes to inclusive education, meaning, let us say almost everyone, every expert agrees, every scholar that accepts the CRPD, accepts the SDGs, accepts the other major international conventions. So what is the ground that we are standing on? Second, also find out where the differences are and where not everyone agrees. So let me start by getting the very basics out of the way. We agree that this is about having rights and not about welfare or charitable work. We agree that we talk about quality education, we talk about equality and equal opportunities for all. And we also agree that these goals and others, like inclusion in the regular school, like the inclusion in the labor market or independent living, can only be achieved by inclusion in the regular school system. And we agree that we are talking about person-centered approaches, about adapted and additional learning materials. We talk about reasonable accommodation of the classroom. We talk about teacher training, adapted curricula, use of technology that creates the inclusion, this equality, this accessibility in the school and the classroom that we all wish for. I tested that in the preparation, so everyone on the panel agrees, and still everybody's nodding. I can now move on to the next point, to Nafisa. Nafisa, you have enormous background with many years in the field of working towards inclusive education systems, also in low-income countries, and you have done a lot of work, especially on learners who are blind. What is it that you want to add about the general understanding what inclusive education is?
Thank you, Michael. What I really want us to remember, and I think here we all agree, that inclusive education and quality education will end exclusion. And it's also a way of ending the learning crisis, because we know that when we train teachers in teaching strategies such as play-based learning or designing lessons that are interactive, fun, where you use graphics, role-play, and demonstration. It's not just interesting and enticing for students to engage and learn, because all people learn differently, but it also makes a lesson accessible for a child who is blind, who is deaf, and I think that is what we all know. I think we feel like we're inclusive education practitioners, we feel like we have the magic bullet, the answer to solving the learning crisis, and people must just hear us, because it's not just about disability. It's so much more. There's so many positive things that it can bring to create quality education and an inclusive society.
Okay, thank you, Nafisa. Albert, as the head of the Austrian Inclusion Network, your focus is learners with intellectual disabilities. What do you want to add here? Still we want to focus on what the common ground is, what everyone agrees on.
I think the common ground, at least at this panel, is that people with intellectual disabilities have and should have equal rights with all other pupils. But it's easily said, and reality is different. At least in Austria, we have still quite many special education units, special education schools, and here we have still not yet a common understanding in society. Some in the teachers' circles say we still need special education units because we don't have full accessibility in regular schools. Also parents say we don't have full choice because if you have on the one hand, a regular school which is not completely accessible, where not all the teachers are educated in inclusive education, and on the other hand, you have schools with very small classes with 8 or 10 pupils, with 2 teachers, with lots of therapeutical possibilities, maybe even with a swimming pool, with highly educated teachers, and full-day education, not only half-day education, then the choice for parents is easy, and they won't blame them. So here we have to say, we have as a vision, I think in Austria we have already the vision, every person with disabilities should have the same possibilities in schools. But the way to that is difficult and will be quite a long way.
Okay. Applause. Also to get this back on this first round, we all agree, including you and the whole inclusion movement, inclusive education means no exception to the rule, especially not for children with intellectual disabilities. And that's the problem, how we're getting there, and we're coming to this point later in the discussion. So Martin, what do you want to add from your perspective? You have a long-term experience also in working directly in the field. What do you want to add?
I think I'll absolutely echo all means all. We can't say that enough. But the point I wanted to make at this point in time actually has been made by our previous keynote speaker, and that was that we need to be clear about where we are. And I would add that we need to know how we've got here. So I would encourage everybody to just take a look back historically and remember that the historical perspective tells us that when school for all children came up as a notion in Western Europe at the end of the 19th century, that was a time where social values were very, very different. And at that time, disabled people were thought to have no place in society or as institutions. So schools sprang up as institutions catering for average children, non-disabled children. And in the years that followed, separate special schools sprung up out of charitable initiative or disabled people's initiatives. So we established a parallel system of education with mainstream for some and separate special schools for others, not because anybody ever sat around a table and planned this and thought this is a good way to organize education. It just evolved in this way. So right now we have this system. We know that, as you say, what we all agree on is honoring the rights of every child to a good education, and we're not quite sure that we agree on where that should be. And if at some point we understand that some of the mainstream schools are not well prepared, as you say, Albert, to be providing for all children, then we have a choice of what do we do in response to that. Do we say, oh, well, that's okay, some people can go somewhere else? Or do we say, well, here is a clear cause for transforming mainstream education so that it can respond to the needs of every child?
Mm-hmm. Okay, Nafis.
You know, what I find very interesting is what people now regard as premier education, right? If you're in private education, send your child to a Montessori school or a Waldorf school. These are the learning philosophy around these education systems, which are very child-centered, was developed by actually studying children with intellectual disability and how they learn. And then it's embedded in, and the education system was designed around that approach. And this is actually the approach that appeals to all students, right? Because it's so much more interactive, child-centered. So we really want to look, I think what we really, all of us are inclusion experts, feel that we really need to bring that quality aspect together with inclusive education, because it's not just about a minority or a small group of people and their inclusion, it's a way of educating all children.
Thank you, Nafisa. So I think we somehow laid the groundwork now, so there is basically an agreement that inclusive education basically has no exception here. This is the agreement here in the panel. On the other hand, there are some discussions going on, we know that, and I would like to address one of those discussions directly, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. So if I quote, for example, the general comments on inclusive education, also the general comments on the CRPT when it comes to education, and Article 25 reads, many state parties are failing to make appropriate provision for persons with disabilities, in particular persons on the autism spectrum, those with communication impairments and those with sensory disabilities. And it also mentions students who are blind, deaf or deaf-blind must be provided with education delivered in the most appropriate languages and modes and means of communications for the individual, and in environments which maximize personal, academic and social development, both within and outside formal school settings. So could I phrase this differently and say, since realistically it will never happen that enough teachers in regular schools are able to teach in Braille or in sign language, and children will never really learn those languages in school, there's a need for additional special training, even outside formal school settings. Is that the right interpretation? Is there an agreement on that? Is there this need for outside training, additional training? And related to that, I would like to ask a second question. If I look at the human rights perspective, the rights of citizens, the rights of even children, it's about enabling, about capabilities, about the right to choose. Does that mean that children or their parents have a right to exclude their children from regular schools and stick to special schools, at least partly if they want to? Is there a right to opt out? Who wants to go first? Artemi?
I'll go first, thank you. We have to remember that children's rights are children's rights. So there is a misconception that parents have a right to, of course, parents, while the child is young and decisions are being made about their education, parents are the best advocates of what is right for the child. But we mustn't forget that it's the child's rights that we're talking about. We also mustn't forget, I was reading a chapter of a book recently that details CSIE's involvement in writing Article 24, and it was a fascinating read to see how Article 24 came to be what it is. And I understand that for many of the ad hoc committee sessions, there were a lot of differences of opinions on whether separate special schools should be put forward as an alternative or not. And in the end, the consensus was that they should not, that inclusive education should be put forward as the only goal. So I think we need to remember that. And of course, a few years later came General Comment number 4 confirming what Article 24 means by inclusive education. So I am personally in no doubt what the intention should be for all of us, and anybody signing up to Article 24 has signed up to that. And I'll let my other fellow speakers speak, and there's a lot more I could say, but I don't want to hold the floor.
Let's come back to that then. Nafisa, you want to go next?
So, you know, what we really have to remember is what is the end goal of education, right? It's to make sure that we have adults who can contribute to society, that feel part of society, belong, that they, and there is no separate societies for blind people, deaf people. We all go to the same shops, that we have will work in the same offices, obviously, in the future. That's the dream. We want to create an inclusive society where children learn together, learn to and play together, learn to work together, right? So I think it's really important that we bear in mind what the end goal is. And yes, of course, children need support. And the support shouldn't be a place, but people or experts can come to a school and provide that support. And I think that's what we always need to bear in mind. We want to bring in the support, not just to the child, but to the teacher, to the family, and that is what is necessary. I think that the decisions around whether you put a child in a special school comes out of fear often from a parent, that their child will be bullied, not accepted. And that is actually the reason why they choose these schools, or they feel this is where the specialists are. But if we create schools or start developing child-friendly schools that are where there's no bullying, where there's a culture of acceptance, good teaching practices and all of that, and the support comes in, I think parents would feel more at ease about sending their child to a regular school. And in our projects in Ethiopia, we have, for example, RSDA, one of our partners, have children with who are deaf in regular schools, in regular classrooms, also have teachers who are deaf teaching diverse classrooms of children who are hearing and deaf, and things are going well there. And all the children are interested in learning sign language. There's lots of acceptance and joy in the classroom. It is possible, and I think that we also need to show parents what is possible and help them to advocate for that so that schools can transform, regular schools can transform.
Would I summarize this? Would I summarize this correctly? What you're saying is that as long as it's in a regular school system, in a regular classroom, additional support can be given and should be given, but it should not be a separate setting. That's the distinction line. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Support is not a place, it's a person. Support is not a place, it's a person with expertise.
Albert?
Yeah. I can immediately join you, because I think that's our vision too. That to overcome the dilemma of parents to choose whether to go to the regular system or a special education system, it's just to create one system where children or young adults will go and will attend a good inclusive education setting. But of course, here we have to take serious the fears of parents. As you said, there are real fears and real experiences of bullying, of exclusion, of non-take-up quotes of pupils with disabilities. And so we need to create, and I think we will succeed in creating a good system with very good assistance, not only by teachers, but also by social workers or assistants in the schools, because not everything has to be done by teachers. But we will have a good system where teachers have at least a basic training on inclusive education, and we have enough teachers with special education training which can support their colleagues. And we will have enough financial resources for the schools which we then have to reallocate. So when we create such a system, parents will be able to choose willingly, or to say, yes, I can trust the school, I can trust adult education, or I can trust university that my child, my young son and my young daughter can attend these education possibilities. This will be quite some time to reach, but I think at least we in Austria, we have one of the most expensive educational systems in the world, and it would be a very bad sign if we don't create a really inclusive system.
Artemi.
If I may add, the examples that you mentioned, there were blind children or children who need a medium of language, the other written language or spoken language for deaf children. And we have become accustomed, there's a culture of accepting that it's okay to send some children to a separate school. And we wouldn't do that for anybody else. We've closed down all of our segregated provision for black children. We wouldn't do it for anybody else. So, we have economic migrants moving to our countries. And children who don't speak the native language yet are supported through interpreters to access the curriculum. So I think that's exactly what we should be doing for everybody else. What I missed out before was to flag up, thank you, what I missed out was to flag up that choice happens in a context. So if we really want to give parents a real choice of where their children will go to school, we really have to develop enough transform mainstream provision so that every local school can respond to the needs of any learner. Without that, it's a hollow promise. I like to give the example. It's just words. I give everybody in here a choice of whether they want to sit on a blue or a red chair. That's no choice. That's the quote-unquote choice that some parents are having. So if we are talking about choice, it really has to be having every option on the table well developed and giving parents a real choice of where they want their child to go to school.
I really loved what Albert said about who were all responsible to promote inclusion, about experts and teachers. But I think what we always forget is that children are also offer support to other children. And I think that they are such a great untapped resource. When we look at, people say, these classrooms are so big. There's so many children. I'm like, there's so many helpers. There's so many people who can support one another. And we see in lots of our Light for the World programs, there are so many, we see great examples of children actually leading the way. They are so much more accepting of diversity and welcoming to children who are said to be different. And I think that we should learn from children, because if we don't give children the choice, they will choose. If we give children the choice who have disabilities, they would choose to be with their peers who are, when they see is other children without disabilities.
I completely agree. I think this capability approach is one of the biggest resources we have, and we still didn't really explore its possibilities. So, for example, also when the first question you asked about the different languages we have in schools or should have in schools. It may be that it's at the present state it's necessary to have also trainings out of schools to get these languages. But at least in Austria, sign language is an acknowledged language. So why not train it in school from the very beginning for all pupils? And also other ways of communication that may be easy to read, text or braille and so on. This could be taught together with, among the peers, with teachers and so on and so on. I think this could enrich our educational system much more than we say, it's a problem because it's a costly and so on and so on, all these boring debates.
Thank you, Michael. Just one more thing I'd like to add. And again, we need to be aware of where we are, what our culture is saying to us right now. And we've got accustomed to accepting what I think is actually discriminatory. The intention has always been to give additional support to children who need it. And nobody could argue against that, I don't think. It's a kind of moral question. But what we've ended up doing is giving alternative support, not additional. Alternative. So children are missing out on something on the grounds that they need the expert support. There's nothing that happens in a special school that cannot happen in an ordinary school. And I sometimes make the analogy that this is like placing a child in hospital on the grounds that they need the medical intervention and not letting friends and family to visit, saying, that's where they need to be. They don't need to be separate from children. Disabled children don't need to be away from their brothers and sisters and friends and potential friends from the local community. We're just taking something away in order to give something that could be delivered anywhere, like Nafisa says.
Okay, Nafisa, two sentences.
Sorry, we're all talkers here. Sorry about that. But what I also think, and we have Maysoon Zaid, it's one of the comedians, she's a fantastic comedian and her Abilities Award winner. She was saying how at her school and what her father encouraged her to do, because she has cerebral palsy and they didn't have money for fancy therapies, is to basically enroller in tap dancing and singing and drama. And I also, those are the things, I actually played tennis even though it was really hard for me to see. I mean, those, because my parents couldn't afford the fancy vision therapy, occupational therapy. So there are things in our current curriculum, if it was not just focused on maths and literacy, if it looked at arts as well, that are therapeutic and inadvertently will help a child to develop skills that were said to be maybe their functional skills, a child with a specific disability, to improve their visual perceptual or fine motor skills. There are things that are already in an arts curriculum that can help them to improve those skills. Painting, art, there's so many things that can be done.
Thank you. So to a very brief in-between wrap-up. So what I got out of this discussion is when we look about the capability approach, the enabling approach, giving people, parents, children a real option, a real choice, then we're moving out of this discussion in total. And then you have real choice between different schools, but not about segregation or not segregation, or special or not special. So this is the way to move forward, creating real choices. And the other thing is, also this nothing about us without us also applying to the children themselves, so they should also have a role, and we're losing a lot if we don't do that, because so many things could be there and is of value and impact to the whole class that we lose. Moving now to the third part of this discussion, it was mentioned already several times. When we talk about inclusive education, this is not a greenfield operation. We don't start from scratch. In every country of the world, I think we can really say in every country, there is an established school system, an established school system mostly consisting of mainstream schools and special schools. So we're not starting from somewhere. We have to change an existing system. On the other hand, in many countries, or in most countries, there is a budget there for education. Even in the poorest or low-income countries, they have a budget. So that's different to other aspects of the challenges that people with disabilities normally face. So what would be your suggestion to move from this current situation with the mainstream and segregated systems at the same time to the common goal that we all share? Who wants to go first?
I think most important is first to break down the barriers in our brains, so that when we say all means all, then it really means all. Also those students and young people with very high and complex needs. This is very important because very often we hear in discussions, but there will be always a little rest of those who can't be included into our school system. I say, no. Our vision must be everybody can use and can attend our educational system. That's the change of brains, and also that we focus on personalized careers in education, focus on person-centered trainings, person-centered curricula and examination settings, which can do quite a lot. Secondly, I think this means also to invest very much into the training of teachers and training of trainers, to know about inclusive education, to know about also about special education for special assistance situations. So we have teachers, and next we will have to create a very good assistance system within the regular schools. Of course, nowadays parents very often have the fear, if I send my child into a regular school, there will not be enough assistance, there will not be enough service done for my child. Here we have to invest, and I think this is possible. And of course we have also to say, no longer two systems, but the existing special education units in our system, they open themselves, become regular systems and best practice examples, encouraging other schools to open, and so that a vice versa education among the schools is possible, and so the system will change slowly and slowly. And I think the other aspects my two colleagues will say.
Okay, I'll go next. some of what I want to say has already been said, so I absolutely echo what you say about preparing the workforce. So we need to have the teachers and the learning support assistants that can do this. We actually need we need a culture shift, and we need to think how we're going to bring that culture shift about. I think each and every one of us needs to have as many conversations as we can. I think there is no dichotomy of, is it special education or is it mainstream education that is better? That's a false dichotomy. Mm-hmm. I think the two positions are not incompatible. It's an irony that huge, big, powerful lobbies put pressure on governments to maintain the status quo or to change the status quo, and both lobbies use the needs of the children. Do that in the name of what's best for the children. So I think that's not incompatible positions. I think that those of us who argue for inclusive education do so in the name of children's rights, and those who argue for special provision make that as a kind of partial reflection of existing provision. This is, if existing mainstream schools cannot adequately support my child, then I want my child to go somewhere else. That's a reflection on current practice. It's not that anybody says that special schools are better in principle. I don't think anybody has ever said that. So I think in all of what we do, we need to ask ourselves, how can we include this person? How can we make this happen? Rather than, can we? And find that no might be an answer. Mm-hmm.
But one additional question, where would you start to change it? Of course, it's the change of mindsets and the change of working on the ground, but if you look at the legal system, at funding systems, where would you start?
I would do two things, because I think change happens top down. So I would go to policymakers and I would really want to make sure that the intention is very clearly stated, but I think change also happens from the bottom up. So I would have personal conversations with anybody. I have conversations with people I meet on the bus. I have conversations everywhere, because that's how, by changing. My experience is that people haven't really grappled with these questions, and once you put forward the children's rights perspective, people agree with me. I'm sure that people will agree with others that put forward the same position. So we just need to go top down and bottom up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really agree also about the top-down, bottom-up approach, because, when world leaders stand up and say, I commit to inclusive education, and show their commitment by financing, that's where we will see a real change in closing the gaps between ideology and policies, and then making it real on the ground. We need financing, and I'm really happy about the World Bank commitment to make all education projects disability inclusive by 2025, and I think that's a great ambition, and we should make sure that any donor who funds education should make all their programs disability inclusive. It must be a criteria to access funding. We always ask in proposals, so how does your project, how is it gender sensitive or sensitive to the environment, right? When people apply for funding, we should ask, and how will your project in education support children with disabilities? So when there's a project looking at improving maths or mathematics or literacy, they have to be disability inclusive. And they have to report on it, and I think that is really important, because then we will see better traction in this area and progress. And governments in their education sector plans should also make sure that the disability is mainstreamed in all aspects of the education sector plan. When they look at teacher training, when they look at how they are developing their workforce and building it up. And I think those are all very important. I think what we have a really good opportunity at the moment with the Sustainable Development Goals, right? There's a more impetus, 10 years to go, so we really need to make things happen. And I see that there's a lot of emphasis also now on early childhood care and education. And I think in our sector, in early child development, because there's research to show, if you start there, you can mitigate problems earlier, improve learning outcomes. And I tell you, this is even more so for children with disabilities. So we also need to be better about our investment choices. We should invest early with the young children, and that's going to really yield us the best results. So I think we need to look at how we invest and encourage governments, world leaders to take the lead and invest in inclusive education for children with disabilities.
Thanks, Nafisa. We are moving to the end of this session. to the whole panel, anything that you want to say that we have missed out so far that you want to add as your final contribution?
Thank you. I'd like to add something. I'd like to put together two of the comments that you made, Nafisa, because on the one hand, finances are absolutely important. We cannot have inclusion if it's not appropriately funded. On the other hand, you mentioned the importance of having other children, non-disabled children, as an important learning resource. So I want us all to remember that if, in the absence of funding, that doesn't mean that we can't have inclusion. If we don't do anything until we can do everything, we end up doing nothing. And that's, we really need to remember that. And also, what more we can do, I would add, we need to share examples of good practice, like our previous presenter said. We also need to share evidence that inclusion works. And we've had the Alana Institute report for many years. We've recently, since 2018, have the report on how inclusive education actually has a positive impact on social inclusion later life. All the evidence is there. We need to be sharing it, and we need to help bring around that cultural transformation.
Thank you. Albert? No final famous last words.
No more famous last words. Can we please put yeah, give it up for our couch. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Can we put this mic on? Okay, guys, we are now going to just get some time to stretch those bodies, grab your sandwich. We are going to be leaving this room in a few seconds and starting our parallel sessions. You will go to your various parallel sessions. We will be coming back to this room together at 5 o'clock, where we will have a couch discussion with youth, and we will be having our exhibition descriptions and also a keynote from Betsy Bowman. So before we phase out, this is a message for our friends in Access Israel. Generally, I'll tell you what you do with the break, but we filmed this in Tel Aviv. So they wanted to try and help all of us understand, for those of us who are visually impaired, what it might mean for us to see or communicate within a conference setting. So this is the last out. You go out, get your sandwiches, get into your parallel sessions, and we'll see you back here at 5 o'clock. So roll the film there. Okay, so we're going to go into break now, and one of the most important things, as we all know about the Zero Conference, the really special thing is about friendship and connection. So I urge you during the break to go out and speak to somebody that you have never spoken to. Make sure that everybody is okay, because together we have a chance of creating a noise that is unstoppable and to make our Zero family bigger and better. I will see you after the break. Okay, guys, go get some lunch, grab your sandwiches, and we will see you back here. Go into your various sessions, and we'll see you back here at 5 o'clock. Thank you. Make sure you talk to each other, and make sure you include each other. So have fun.